wasn't calling her out at first, but several kids were like looking at her, and I knew what was going on. So we had a big long talk about it, and I asked them, you know, what is it that is so bad in your life that you find it necessary to make other people hurt? But after all of that was said and done, at the end of it, I was like, you know, there are good things about you, and I don't know why. And I asked the other kids to kind of chime in, and several kids that I know do not like her personally.
They can find something good.
Yes. And it was kind of like, it made her feel better, and she's been a lot better over the past couple of days. And it's really hard to like this. She's really a pain in the butt.
That is the perfect segue.
Difficult to connect with.
Because that is exactly what this one is about. It really is about how we encourage our kids when they have misbehavior, how we encourage them when they are complying to what we ask them to do, and how we encourage them whenever they are taking part in being helpful. And those are encouragements that they need in all three areas. And sometimes we don't think of their misbehavior as an opportunity to encourage them, but it's exactly what it is. So just the first part of it, and Richie really helped me out to explain this, talking about the frequencies that we have in our room and what wins out. So you can have high and low frequencies, and what that high and low looks like or is in your room could be different things. High and low could be you literally have high energy and low energy. High and low could be that you have kids who are complying and doing the work that they're supposed to be doing, and kids who are off task and talking. But what the frequency thing is that I equated it to when you go and you work out and you have the ropes, that you're doing the ropes and you're trying to get them together. And what Richie said, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, they're evil.
Yeah, they're so hard. And what Richie was saying was like, this is about being in tune. But the frequencies will eventually even each other out. They'll get onto the same wavelength. And so what we want in our classrooms is we want the positive frequency to win out. So that can be, if you have a ton of calm in your room, a ton of kids who are compliant, who do feel like they're a part of your class family, and they see a kid who comes in upset, or we have a new student who's kind of checking it out, or you see a kid who is just completely, you know, off the charts that day, if the kids are complying, that upset kid will join in with them because the majority always wins. And the same is true on the opposite way. If you have a class where there's a lot of misbehavior, you have multiple kids who are on the misbehavior, it's frustrating you, then even your, you know, quote unquote good kids, because we're going to talk about what it is to be a good and a bad kid, your good kids will start to fall into that also. It might not look exactly the same, but it might be that they start side conversation, that they start slowing down on their work, they're not turning in their homework, because they're going to get onto that frequency. So the point of our encouragement is, again, whether it's misbehavior, whether it's compliance, or whether it's just noticing the kind and helpful things that they're doing, those are all part of being connected in your classroom. And so that's why it's really important for us to vocalize those. So a couple of things first. In order to pass out encouragement, give me a second. I'm going to encourage this right now.
Please work.
No, it's not a video, it's just a slide.
Oh, no.
Okay, so instead of focusing on, I hope this is the one that I was doing next, it is. Instead of focusing on good and bad, and those are the labels that we use, instead we're going to focus on our conscious discipline languages. We see kids, opportunities, the situations in our room as safe and unsafe. And so when we see, when we are in a stressful situation, when we are in a state of upset, we've come to work late, or the coffee machine was broken and we got here early and there's nothing we can do about it. When we get stressed, if we don't calm ourselves, this is the way that we start to perceive things. So you can start to see the kids as either good or bad kids. They are deserving or undeserving of what's about to happen. These kids should feel good and these kids should feel bad whenever they're upset. Or this one never gets in trouble. It wasn't really their fault, but this one always does it, and it's going to be that one. That's the one who did it. That's how we start to perceive our kids when we're stressed. But instead, if we take that moment and calm ourselves, we start to look at their behaviors as this is a safe situation and an unsafe situation. We see calm and distress instead, helpful and hurtful actions in the classroom. And we see kids who have solutions and are problem solvers, and that's why they're successful. And we see the kids who are off task as kids who need help, and that's what the call for help is. Okay? So, thinking about whether we're in our executive state or if we're in our emotional state, any of this can happen in any given day. Like for instance, right now, I'm not going to be on my way to go to the next thing. Then I'm going to get my hair cut. I'll be looking good tomorrow. But I'm in my executive state today because it was an awesome day. So let's just say, end up going, and there's a kid who is screaming at HEB in front of me, and he's going to make me late to my hair appointment. There's nothing I can do. But in my executive state, I can just take a breath, and I can wish that mom or dad well, and I can look at the little kiddo and think it's going to be okay. But if I am stressed to the max and in my emotional state because my day didn't go well, and now and every single thing I'm seeing as an obstacle, I'm going to view that kid in a completely different light, even though that's a poor innocent child, and I'm going to maybe judge that mom or that dad. But I won't if I'm in my executive state. And these are all things that happen. When we watch the news, last night, Super Tuesday, depending on what state you're in, you either don't care or maybe you look at it and you have different thoughts of it. When someone comes up to your window asking for a handout or they're asking to clean your window, there are times when we're like, don't come over here, don't touch my window. Or there's some times where we just have to let go and say, you know what, that's the gift that they're giving right now. And I maybe not have anything physically or tangible to give them, but I can at least acknowledge the fact that they're doing something for me. And that's a way that you can view that. And then the last one is especially your coworkers, your children, your significant others, when they make that mistake that happens again and again and again. There's one way that we react to them when we are in our emotional state, and there's another way where we react to them when we're in our executive state. And in our executive state, we can tell them very clearly, I don't like it when you do this, it makes me feel like this, can you please do it this way instead? That's a lot calmer than saying, I already told you yesterday and you did it again and you're doing it on purpose. And we talk to our kids in our classrooms like that sometimes. Or we're going to hope that we're going to move away from it. We talked about it yesterday. Oops, you made a mistake. We're going to try it again today. Let's see you do it right now. Okay. So, one thing that we need to do is when we see the kids are misbehaving, we're not letting them off the hook. That's not what it's about. And there is definitely consequences that are going to come, natural consequences, and are just part of life. But these are some things that we might see. And this one happens all the time in my classroom. You see a kid who bumps into another kid on the way out of the classroom. Usually what it looks like is you tell everybody, line up at the door, we're about to switch. And there is a clear line, and yet the one decides to come, and so there's now 3 or 4 people trying to get through. And you see the faces of the other kids around, which is either they're hurt or they're mad. How did you just do that? So what we see is when we see a kid bump in, what we might need to say is, you know what, that's a kid who needs some help focusing their attention. And the way that you say that is, I need you to stop. Do you see that every day we line up in a straight line and we're all going to get out of here on time? Or it could be a fact that it's spatial relationships, so you're going to help that student out by saying, we're going to stand in a straight line and you need to have 2 feet behind the other person and give them that space. This is what 2 feet looks like. Put one foot, put the other, put your feet together. This is enough space. This is what we need to do. And we're going to walk out the door and we can all make it. You see a kid push into another one while they're trying to get handouts. She's trying to be helpful. She was getting the handouts for the table. Happened just now. Girl is in line getting the handouts. Other girl comes from this way to start getting the handouts too. There's a clear line. And now the papers are a mess. And now the other students are upset. So instead what I need to say is, she's always trying to cut in front of people. She's always trying to do it her way. Or I can say, you know what? She's got some impulse control issues. She's trying to hurry because she's trying to get back to her desk. And I can also talk to her about waiting turns and how we're all going to get the papers. And I promise I'm not going to start until everybody is sitting down. Maybe it's an anxious thing for her. Okay? And then this last one is a very nice way of saying what there's some really hurtful things that say in our classrooms. A child calls another classmate dumb and ugly, and it can get a lot more creative than that. But instead we need to see that as that child is having trouble managing their stress, and that child's having problems expressing their frustration with another person, and so we're going to help. Okay, so that we haven't fixed anything. We're just changing the way we look at the misbehavior. So these are this is the first of the 3 ways that we encourage our students, and this is the one how we encourage them through misbehavior. So the very first thing if a misbehavior happens and it affects other people around, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to empower the students that it hurt. So the example is that Eileen bumps into people. So she bumps into a group of people and they're getting upset. So you notice it and so you go and you say, Eileen bumped into you as you walked by. Did you like it? They're going to say, no, I didn't like it. Okay, then go tell Eileen, please watch where you're going. It hurt me when you bumped into me. And then you say, go say it so that you can go and see them do it so they can practice. You're teaching them how to be assertive and set limits. And that is an amazing skill to have in life. And I really do value people who I work with as an adult who they can clearly say something, because I feel like that's something that I struggle with how can you be assertive without coming off crazy or mean or judgmental. And then sometimes I end up suppressing it, and so then it does come out crazy, mean, and judgmental. But instead, you can just say it clearly, and it wasn't mean, and it wasn't hurtful, and you told them what you wanted. So this is something that we're going to teach the students how to do. Now we got to talk about Eileen. So step 2 is you see that Eileen's bumping people as a call for help. So now you're going to say, Eileen, it seems like you're grumpy and tense this morning. And let's just say Eileen says, I'm not grumpy or tense. Okay, Eileen, so what are you feeling right now? I'm just sleepy. Okay, so you're tired right now. It seems like it's frustrating you because you're so tired. Okay, what can you do right now to help in this moment? So you're letting Eileen have an opportunity to calm herself, and you're helping teacher. Now, if Eileen says, I don't know, then you can say, class, what are some things that maybe Eileen, she doesn't feel good right now, what can Eileen do? And you can ask the class, or you can suggest something to Eileen. Now, we haven't fixed Eileen yet. We haven't given her a consequence, but she didn't necessarily need a consequence. Maybe she needed it as a teaching moment, right? But if Eileen continues to do this behavior, then we'll move on to something else, because maybe it's something different. But instead, we're going to see her misbehavior as, you know what, she had an oops moment and she needed to be taught something. Okay, she just needs to be reminded. So that's the first thing. That was a misbehavior. Now, let's say Eileen came in again the next morning. She bumped into somebody again, and we're not done with Eileen quite yet, okay? We're not going to push her to the side. Instead, we're going to encourage Eileen by reminding her, hey, Eileen, remember yesterday we said that when you come in and you're not feeling so good, you decided that you wanted to go sit in a safe place. Eileen, you decided you wanted to get the Guinness book, and you wanted to sit with the Guinness book, and that's what you wanted to do. You decided that you wanted to go sit by yourself and not with the group. You wanted to sit at the table. So remember, that's what you're going to do when you're frustrated, and that's okay. So we're going to remind her, and we're going to say, you almost did it. You were close, but let's go ahead and try again. Go over to the safe place. Or you're going to tell Eileen, you know what, Eileen? I'm confident you're going to figure out a different way to come in each morning, okay? So let's try a different way. What do you want to do? Or you're going to say, Eileen, oops, we all make mistakes, but what can you do now that's going to be helpful, okay? So this is encouragement even after a mistake. You're still encouraging them through the mistake, okay? All right, our next thing is, how do we encourage kids who comply? So first of all, I just want to remind, we always say it's my job to keep the classroom safe and it's your job to help me keep you safe. Well, how do they help us? They help us by doing their class jobs. They help us by following our class rules. And when they are recognizing that they're being helpful, that's part of a connection. And what's important about connection, that it's a replacement for external reward. So those, instead we're not going to do extrinsic motivators, you get points to go and do something. Instead we're going to have them have intrinsic motivation. And that's again up to life skill, okay? So, I'm going a little bit faster, sorry. Let's say you see some classes, and this is my example right now. I need everybody to get your books on your table so that we can start doing our independent reading. And you're waiting, and you see that there's a student who has complied already. So instead you want to encourage that student, or maybe it's a whole table. Instead you want to encourage the fact that they did it and acknowledge it. So this is the phrase you use. You say, you did it. You describe what they just did, and then you can add a little something at the end. So I'm going to say, all right, table one, y'all did it. You already have your books out and you're ready to go. Way to go. That was encouragement to them, okay? So This was mine. I have a student who he leaves a trail of chairs out along the way, and I tell him all the time to push in his chair. It's not safe, it's not safe. So he really has been working on it. And so when I noticed that he did push in his chair on his own without me prompting, chair, I'm always like that. I told him, hey, you did it. You pushed in the chair so we can walk around safely in the room. Good job, okay? And what we're trying to do is replace things like, thank you for doing that, or because that means that you did it for me, and instead they're doing it because they know that they're supposed to do it. It's compliance. So that's the second way we encourage. The first one was for misbehavior. This one's for compliance. And then the last one is when we notice something helpful that they do. There is something in conscious discipline called a kindness tree, and I'll be honest, it's been the hardest thing for me to kind of get going in my room. And I've always said it's because they're middle schoolers and they're very self-centered right now. It's all about them and they don't really think about what's going on. But really, what I think about it is I'm not modeling it to them. And if I'm not modeling it to them, then they're not going to be able to practice it. So this is how we're going to encourage. And on Friday, the Friday conscious discipline lesson for the school is going to give the students an opportunity to do this and to notice kindness. And so I just want to encourage you right now to maybe think of a way to either display that kindness. It doesn't have to be a tree. It can be something different. But I also want you to try to practice using this phrase. So when someone does something that's helpful or kind, you say their name, so it's very personal. You describe what they do in detail. You tell them how it was helpful, and then you can end it with a tag, and I'll tell you what the tags are. So the example is the fact that Becca doesn't have any paper. Becca never has any paper, okay? And but Jonas goes and he notices, you know, you watch and you see that Jonas gave Becca some paper so that we could get it going, and you didn't have to say anything. So instead you acknowledge Jonas and you say, Jonas, you saw that Becca needed some paper, so you offered her some of yours. That was helpful. And so now Jonas knows exactly what he did that was helpful. And so now Jonas is going to think, you know what, whenever I see someone who might need something, a supply, like a piece of paper, I can do that for them, and he'll continue to do that. So some other things are how you can end with a tag is, we were trying to practice them this morning. That took determination. Where we use it, that took determination. Oh, they finished an assignment. That's what we said. Hey, as a kid who struggles all the time to complete an assignment, hey, you finished that assignment so that you can get on and play the online school-related review game on the computer. Okay. That took a lot of determination to get that done. Okay, and so you're telling that kid, you know what, I did do it, and I was determined, I got it done. You can say how things were helpful, thoughtful, kind, caring. A lot of times, you see kids drop stuff in the middle of the hall and they stop and they help someone. You say, oh, you picked up, you know, I'm making up a name. You picked up Jonas's papers so that nobody else would step on it. That was really thoughtful of you to do that. And so now they know, and the other kids are hearing exactly what they did for Jonas. So those are the three ways. What I want to encourage you is, the challenge was, can you do 10 noticing? Can you do 10 notices per day within the first 6 weeks of school? But really, if you think about it, we talked about it this morning, if you can just do 2 of these per class period, that would be, and you have about 4 classes, that would be 8 that you did. So if you can tell your kids and out your class period and practice it, and then if you can challenge it and either do 2 with your coworkers or maybe 2 at home with your family, that would be 10. And it's just to get us to start practicing. And instead of just saying, good job, way to go, we're being really specific, and it's so much more meaningful for the person who's receiving that encouragement.
Are her feeder schools using this?
I think that some are. I know that some are.
A lot of my kids are very, I mean, they don't use the exact language, but they are much better than kids I've had in the past at
using that language.
Well, it just being like, thank you for helping me. A lot of my kids, without prompting, are really good, and I was just wondering, they've had to have had some experience with it.
And if you think about it, some kids aren't, I mean, a lot of our kids say thanks. We say that all the time. Thanks, when they come and bring us something. But instead, that's kind of dismissive, and it's not really heartfelt. So instead, we need to practice saying, what are we thankful for that they're doing? Or maybe we're not really thankful. Maybe it's something different that we need to say instead of it. So that's what the challenge is to use this phrase, you blank so that blank, that was helpful, that was kind, that was thoughtful, that was sweet.
Get a thesaurus. That's what I did. Well, the activity, I'm actually putting together the Friday lesson, and I'm going to send that out to you guys. There's one little part that I'm finishing, and then it'll be done. But the activity is basically this, but in a very user-friendly way. And we told you about it, and we told you about it. We did something similar to Bush, but I'm Schneiderifying it. You're welcome. That was like 15 syllables.
That's so
But,
awesome.
but it gives teachers, like sometimes there's so many parts of consciousness that's just freaking overwhelming, and using the language, some people are like,
That's me.
I wish you well, you know, it's my job to
Doesn't
keep
come
you safe.
naturally.
Like they get caught up in the language and they feel like they're not doing it right, which the language is a guide, but even if it's not, completely verbatim, that's okay. But the activity after, you teach the lesson or whatever, there's going to be these, they're kind of like notes, okay? At Bush, we called them yellow coupons. We're not calling them yellow coupons here. We're going to think of something better. That's for when we were picking your brain. But the yellow coupons were the way that teachers noticed, or the way that the kids, if the kids functioned high enough, the kids could do them. And it was things
They
like,
say things
you make a difference.
like you're saying there.
It's
you finished your
literally
assignment.
that.
Way to go. You did
you
this
blank,
so that blank, and you
that
fill
was
it in.
blank.
It's just the same language.
You completed all of your classwork.
You went to the safe place.
You went to the safe place.
Problem solved in a
calmed down,
positive way.
If it wasn't so prison related, we
breath
could
when
call
you were
them kindness
upset.
kites. But
But it's literally
kindness kites. The kites are.
the kids are even going to.
I watch prison shows. A kite is like a
'Cause
little
that
piece of
could be
paper that
your
they would
kind of
write notes
street,
on back and forth. I watch
You know,
MSNBC
little
late at
notes
night.
behind the street, the kids can complete those and write them up. The teachers can complete
We
them
could make
and
them
write
like the
up.
shape of a kite, and then we could call it that and not be derogatory.
But there's one like, you did it, you blank, so blank, that was blank. Like it's kind of like fill in the blank for you, so you're learning the language, and like the kids.
And it
are
goes
learning
along with your
language.
goal of noticing.
I have a
activity.
kindness
So-
tree. We use just sticky notes, but my kids are
Yeah.
so bad about not doing it.
And that's the deal.
Yeah.
So this is the part
You
that's
model
supposed
it,
to kind of
they'll do
maybe
it
help
too.
I
us.
try. Take some of my math curriculum.
I think that is part of it, is that you see, look at all of this acts of kindness, and I'm gonna be honest with you, this is our Pod D acts of kindness, and if you notice, there's a lot of teacher kindness that we put up here for the kids, but they need to practice it. And there was an activity that the school did where, y'all gave them a post-it and you said, write something nice or inspiring and post it around the school.
Yeah.
They did it. They just needed practice.
Yeah.
Right.
So our goal is that on Friday, maybe they can practice it. And if for you, since you already have a tree, put it on the tree,
Yeah.
give them a piece of tape. For us, we're going to try to put it out here. We've already cleaned the board, and we want them to put it out here on our Pod D board. I do have a place in my classroom, too, where I want them to start putting them. And again, you have to model it. So what I want to show you is this. There's a couple of ways that you can use those encouraging statements in our class structures that we already have. So one, first of all, a connecting ritual in itself is a form of encouragement. You're not using the statements, but these are a form of encouragement because it's also connection. They're part of the classroom. So if you have any of these, or you might have something different. I know some of the pods, they have a good morning ritual where they shout from one side to another. That's fun. They love it. And that's their morning ritual, right? And so that's part of their connecting. Having and posting a ways to be helpful, this really comes from at the beginning of the year, we do norms and we do a successful student see, does, hear, says. Well, it's the does. And you can either just take that does, and this teacher just simply wrote it on a piece of paper. This is how you can be helpful in the classroom. And so we got to give the students an opportunity and show them, what does helpful look like in my classroom? Or what does helpful look like at Schneider? What does helpful look like in the cafeteria? Picking up trash, even if it's not yours, washing the tables. If somebody spills something, going and getting something. So letting them see, that's what helpful is. And then they'll want to go and be helpful. Of course, when they're helpful, we've got to acknowledge that you went and got the mop because someone spilled their milk so that no one would slip. That was really helpful, okay? So another thing, this is the kindness tree that you can post them so that they can kind of see. And what you need, we all have jobs boards. Those jobs are ways that the kids are helpful every single day. And we need to acknowledge the fact that they do their jobs, and so that's where we can start practicing right now. So I have a student who with fidelity, does his job even though it's the very last thing before he has to run out the door, and even if he's not at the class and everybody's gone, he's still trying to do it really fast. I need to acknowledge the fact that he never forgets his job. So I can say, Rudy, you make sure that the safekeeper pieces are put away every day and set up so that we can put them up tomorrow. That's so helpful. You get us ready. Well, the students are noticing that poor Rudy, he always has to do it, and it's always kind of fast at the end of the day. So more students are helping Rudy do it. So today I need to say, hey, Ivan and Lewis, you noticed that Rudy was trying to get this done, so you went and helped him so y'all could get out of the classroom at the end of the day. That was really helpful. Thanks for doing that with Rudy. I need to acknowledge that so that they can continue to see those opportunities. If they see a student who's struggling, that they're going to step in. So, and we have to acknowledge it. That's all it is. So we already have these jobs. And then the very last thing is just a reminder. If you don't have class jobs, or if you're a person who, the goal is to have a class job for every single kid. And I think we're to that point in the school where we all have class jobs, and we're not at that point where we're like, it's impossible, because it's 100% possible to have a job for every kid in the room. And if you are having trouble finding some jobs for every single kid, I gave you some that you can kind of look at, and if you're like, I don't know what that is, just please come and talk to me. But all of this is part of our classroom that we've decided is important for us. Let's take the time to thank them. And even if that is, to make it easy for you, today I'm going to thank the handout people, and I'm going to thank the supply people. And if that's what you do in each class period, is you thank the handout and the supply people, you'll get the supplies every day so that we have our scissors and glue and we're ready to work in our notebook. Thank you for doing that. That's helpful. If you do it for the handout people, that makes them feel good. It's a little pat on their back. And again, they're more willing to help and keep going. That's encouragement.
What's a secret spy?
My secret spy, I love my secret. I'm always like, who's my spy? It's the person who goes and runs errands. Who's my spy?
Oh,
go,
awesome.
go take this to the office. Who's my spy in this room? Okay, because I always forget who's my spy. But they love being the spy. We're just the person who goes and runs. And again, a lot of this is
And that could be your
changing
kindness
them.
reporter too, though. The secret spy
secret
could be
spy.
your
I
It
thought
kindness.
that
could
was
be,
what
yeah. And there's this one. This was the one that came up just this year, backup quarterback. One of my students was the one who was like, you need a job for when people are absent, that they get to do the other person's
I have a
job.
substitute.
I was like,
Oh,
thank you
that's
so
so
much.
cool.
So then one of my other students was like, we're like, what can we call it? Do the job when no one's here. And he's like, oh, like a backup quarterback. Thank you. And he actually had the specific name of a backup quarterback, which I don't know anything about football, but so we decided to call it backup quarterback, and that's what you do when somebody's not here. So sometimes the kids start to notice what you need in your classroom.
Yeah.
So again, I need to think. Destiny, you noticed that we need to have a job for when people aren't here. Thank you, that was so helpful. There you go. And now Destiny knows. That was her idea. So those were the 3 ways to encourage. Encourage through misbehavior when misbehavior happens. Encourage when students comply and do what you've asked them to do. And encourage students who you notice are being helpful and kind. All right. Thank y'all.